Well, hi. You, my friend, have a sweet spot in the market. This is the first time I've gone live in what feels like 18 years. If you don't know me yet, my name is Crystal Crawford, and I'm a former Access Consciousness facilitator turned business coach. And I want to dive into today how I went from 2K in 6 months to 27K in like 5 months. And mostly I just use numbers to show you that no matter where you're starting, no matter what it is that you are pivoting into or from, there is a place in the market for you and your idea and your brilliance. And since we're live, I will admit that I have 82 piles of notes. So I've got an iPad. I'm going to share my screen. I've got notes on my thing and I've got notes on my other thing. And I've been trying to get this perfect all day. So fuck it. We're just going to dive in. You're invited to a workshop I'm doing. If you go to crystalcrawford.com, I am doing a sweet spot workshop on the 14th of October. But let's go into what I really want to talk about, which is the behind the scenes of my own pivot and how many different offer iterations I went through and how many different markets I went through in trying to land where I did now, which is business coaching for career and business path pivoting women, and why I did that. And why the heck I would choose to niche after 10 years in consciousness, facilitating consciousness in business, facilitating consciousness with money. Why would I choose after all this time to specialize? What do I know about this? What can you know about this? And how can we apply all of this to you? I'm excited to get into it. So what I'm going to cover today is my behind the scenes. So my arc of like all the different stages that my thing went through. It won't take very long with that. But I also want to go into 3 key takeaways for you. Number one, finding your sweet spot is a lot simpler than you think. I have a proprietary prompt process that can get you there. Actually can get you to an offer in 24 hours. I'll talk about that later. So number 2, market validation shows you the fastest path forward. So first of all, finding it's easier than you think. You can actually go out into the marketplace and find things that are performing to find out if your idea is a good one. And this was something I didn't know about till recently. And 3, your sweet spot reveals what's already working. So it reveals what's going to work for you and it reveals what's going to work in the marketplace. But before we get into those 3 big points, I want to talk a little bit about my own arc. And I'm going to share my screen here and do some sharing. I'm going to share my screen and do some sharing. So this is going to be my brutally honest coaching offer journey behind the scenes. I'm going to do some drawing for you if I can find my pen. It's how I went from 15K months to 2K months to 32K in 5 months without dying. All right. But let's dive into kind of how this worked for me. So in 2024 May, I decertified as an Access Consciousness facilitator, and I'd been doing that for 10 years. And I had to figure out what I was doing with my life. So I spent about 3 months doing nothing. That's not exactly true. I think I was still running small offers to my email list. I was still doing private sessions, but like random one-to-one stuff. So not a whole lot. 3 months from like May to July. All right. This is of 2024. Now you have to understand that I had just spent 10 years in one career. So if you are looking at dropping your 9 to 5 and pivoting into coaching, or you've been thinking about pulling the trigger, but you haven't yet. I spent 10 years in a career. So I was very, very specialized. And the reason I bring that up is because I did not know what I was going to do next. So I spent 3 months kind of like, I have no idea what I'm going to actually do. So 10 years as a specialized practitioner. And so when I started choosing what it was I was going to start to talk about, I did not start with a niche. I didn't start with trying to find my sweet spot. I started with just continuing to talk about the things that I had always talked about. So for me, I had talked about consciousness for almost 10 years. So from July to I don't know, September of 2024, I was on LinkedIn, hi LinkedIn, talking about consciousness and money. And the money thing kind of happened as an accident. I did one post on money and it blew up. And I was like, this continues to be a thing for people. And I learned something about that I'll tell you later. But this was what I was doing content about. So I did not have an offer. So I'm going to put that here. I had no offer. Now we're going to talk about offers in another video, but I still didn't have an offer. My belief at this time was build an audience, figure out the offer later. Build an audience, figure out an offer later. So that's what I was doing. But as I was doing content, what I realized is that I didn't have a call to action on my content. I was just building a lot of eyeballs, but I didn't know what I was going to do with them. I had no offer. So around September of 2024, I ran into my first business coach. And he popped into my DMs and he's asked me, do you have your offer? And I said, nope, no offer. And I knew I needed to get it together. I was doing some studying. I'm like, what am I going to sell? What am I doing? And what am I going to sell? So I joined his program and I built my first offer. Now, my first offer out of the gate from my consciousness, like outside of all the consciousness work that I had been doing, was called Money Shift. And I built this because I had seen a lot of attention on my money tools. I knew that money was a big demand trigger for people. So I built my first offer around Money Shift. Now, I wasn't very clear on how I was going to deliver it. I was in a program that was teaching us how to deliver it via group programs. And I made total $2,000 per month for 6 months with this offer. It didn't pay my bills totally. I still had to scramble to make more money to pay my bills. But this is what I made from this offer. And it was a 6-month offer. Now, I could have kept relaunching this offer. One of the things that happens when you don't start with finding your sweet spot, when you start with throwing spaghetti, because this is what I was doing. I was doing the spaghetti method. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with the spaghetti method. And even after you find your sweet spot that I'm going to talk about, there's still a little bit of this, but this was spaghetti method with no target. I did not know. And I think that sometimes in our lives, there's phases where not only that's okay, but that's normal. But the thing that I didn't have that some other people do have is I also didn't have any runway. So I talk about this a lot because when you're pivoting, if you've got, if you've got a pension, if you've got other income, if you have a partner that's paying all the bills, if you've got some kind of runway, you have a little more time to figure this out. And so I think I've watched some people take a year or 2 or 3 to kind of figure out what direction they want to go. But I had no target and no runway. And this I don't recommend, but there we were. So I had to keep throwing spaghetti active. I had to figure out what I was going to do with my life quite a bit faster than most people do. So I was doing the spaghetti method with no target and no runway. And so I ended up getting out of that business coaches program and I found my next coach, who I love. And I still was unsure about what I wanted to do. And I'm going to do another video on the energetics behind this, because this right now is kind of talking about the front facing part, but I was still really functioning from survival. I was still really hadn't recovered from winding down my business. And just the 4 years previous to this, my life had been really intense. And so I was still kind of going, well, I have to figure out what I want to do next. I wasn't having any space or energy change or any of that. And so we chatted and landed as clearly as we could into my next offer, which some of you saw, which was the conscious entrepreneur system. Now, there was a lot of things I liked about this. And I made, let me see if I can even recall what I made with this. This I made quite a bit less with because I charged different. I want to say I made like, I can't even recall now. I think I made $3,200 in 16 weeks with this. So again, not enough to pay my bills. And I still made some money. So, I mean, I guess one of the things I want to point out is that spaghetti method still resulted in making some money. Okay. And the other thing is that people did buy these things. So when you are first getting out there and you're testing your offers, one of the things you're looking for is validation from the market. And people validate offers with their cash. So if they're paying for something, there's something there, right? That potentially was scalable. But I was looking for my sweet spot. And I was doing it while doing offers, which I don't really recommend, but it's a way to do it. So I'm going to take you through finding your sweet spot without having to put together all these offers and figure it out with going to launch them. We want to find out the sweet spot first. But I was trying to find my sweet spot through offers. So I made a little money in the process. I think $3,200 in 2 weeks, and I had 2 clients. All right, so nothing crazy. And I delivered this program, like I promised, for 16 weeks. And it had components of what I wanted to include, but it still wasn't everything. And then in the meantime, step 3, in the meantime, I had chosen to get certified as an executive coach. I am an executive coach. All right. So I have this executive coaching skill. This is while I'm launching offers and I'm trying to figure out my sweet spot, right? I'm also getting certified as an executive coach. So somewhere in there, I'm like, what do executive coaches do? Well, so listen, before I got certified as an executive coach, I just thought it sounded cool and it was going to be a great skill. And it is. I use it in my work now. But typically, executive coaches work inside of corporations. So I was like, okay, well, I can do that. Now, I've never worked in corporate ever. I don't know anything about it. I have no connections inside. This was going to be possible, but it was going to be a lot hard. Like, this was going to be way more of a thing. I don't even know if I can find my pen now. There it is. Trying to get this off the ground as an offer was going to take a lot more. So I started a company called Empowered Dynamics. Now, this company called Empowered Dynamics was to deliver leadership and executive coaching into organizations. I have a friend. She's going to watch this at some point, I'm sure. She's inside of an organization. She was very excited about my executive coaching thing. And we got talking and we did some sessions together. And she's like, my brother is this thing and you can talk to him. So I got really excited and I thought he was really excited. And I spent a whole bunch of time putting together an offer for them. I'm talking like 20 hours. Putting together an offer. Let me show you how much I made from this. $0 from this idea. All right. So I spent a ton of time trying to getting this offer together, and I got rejected in 8 minutes flat. And I talk about this in some of my videos. But in 8 minutes flat, it was like, nope, we're not interested. And so Empower Dynamics lasted for about 3 months and made $0. There we go. I'm still an executive coach. I actually have a client in my executive coaching practice. At some point, I might expand that practice, but that was that offer. So here I am. Remember how I said I had no target and no runway? All right. The reason this is important, this no target and no runway, is because at this point, this was my breaking point right here with this executive coaching and $0 thing. I was down to almost no money. The 2 offers that I'd put out weren't quite the thing for me. They didn't quite hit my sweet spot. And at this point, I needed to change the energy. So I did. I changed my personality and changed my life. Now, I don't think you can separate finding your sweet spot from changing the energy. However, in my workshop on the 14th, we are going to dive into the practical piece of that. And then if you want to come get the whole enchilada, you can join the community. So I changed the energy. Now, what happened when I did this is I got access to my sweet spot. And when you come to the workshop on whatever day it is, 14th, we're going to do an energetic exercise to get you more clear before we dive into the pragmatics. But I changed the energy and I came out of that and I knew instantly what my sweet spot is. And I'm going to tell you what this tells me about you in a second. So I knew when I came out of there that I was going to be coaching on business plus energy. And I knew exactly what to do next. I knew the steps to take. I knew the tactics to take. I knew the strategies to use. I came out of that energetic session knowing, but I knew instantly what my sweet spot was. Now, that is not the case for everybody. I have been in the marketplace for almost 10 years. And so I had a lot of information. I had a lot of experience, all this other stuff that some of you don't have. But I knew instantly that this was it matched what I wanted to do. It was interesting enough for me, and it was validated in the marketplace. There was demand for this. I had proof of that over the 10 years I was a consciousness facilitator. Most of the income that I'd made as a consciousness facilitator had come from my business programs. So I knew instantly this was what I was going to do. I did a launch. I put together a launch, and in that launch, I made $10K right away. So immediately $10K in my bank account. And then over the next 4 months, I believe I made another 22K. Now, this was with just 11 clients. And the reason I tell you that is that in the beginning of any coaching business, it doesn't take a huge amount of volume to start really making some money. All you need is clarity. You just need clarity. And that's what we're going to do in the workshop. We're going to get clarity on your sweet spot. And you need an offer. So that's a product. And you need a simple outreach strategy to people that you already know. And so it's really cool because the people that are doing this with me right now, my 11 clients, are getting results. So we'll call her Miss A. Just closed her. This Miss A doesn't have any experience in business aside from just supporting others in their businesses. This is the first time she's gone out on her own. And 2 days ago, just closed her first client. And that was an offer that we put together, a sweet spot we figured out, an offer we put together, and a conversation she had, and boom, she had a client. Miss L, my Miss LA, just had a 5K launch. Now, she was she's been a coach for a while, but she pivoted her sweet spot. So this one, the Miss LA was a generalist coach. She was really trying to sell the modality, sell energy as an idea. And that's always hard. When you are a general energy coach, no one knows what to come to you about. And so we kept kind of looking at this, and she really finally leaned into her sweet spot, which is she is a recovery coach for people getting sober from emotions and substances. And so her launch blew up at 5K. And I say blew up because when you're charging, you can charge what you want when you start, but when you're charging 1K for your beta offer, you don't have to. You can charge 3K, you can even go up to 5, but 1K is just a really easy way to get started. Then it's a little easier because people can throw down $1,000 quite easily, and then you get experience and you get to work out your offer, but that's another video. So anyway, so it's just to say that it's already working. So let's go into then just the 3 big takeaways. Number 1 is finding your sweet spot is actually easier than you think. So finding it is easy. So you guys know that I'm always out there doing it the hard way to try to find the easy way so that I can come back and tell you the most elegant way. That is my superhuman design. I'm a manifesting generator 3-5. It's and if I didn't know that, that would just be the way I work. Finding your sweet spot where there's demand in the market and you are interested in it is easier than you think. And it really, really starts with asking the right questions, right? And of course, there's no wrong question per se, but you want to ask questions that start to allow what's there to bubble up. So, for example, one of the questions you start to look at is like, well, what do you naturally love to talk about? Another question would be, what do people typically come to you for? Everybody that I know that is interested in consciousness or healing or energy is has people that come to them, whether it's their siblings or their kids or their family or their neighbors or their friends. They are usually the ones that are giving advice, that are coaching without being paid for it. Raise your hand if that's you. So finding is pretty easy because what you're going to start to notice as you pay attention to the patterns is that there are patterns. And so there are things that you naturally talk about or processes that you naturally gravitate to talking to people about. There are topics that people naturally come to you for. So there's patterns. And what we start to do in the workshop is we start to uncover those patterns. But the second part that we look at, that where we find the intersection, so really we're looking at, I would say, more like a 2-circle thing. It's probably 3, but from this example, we're going to look at 2. So there's really you, the you part, what you love, what you're interested in, what you think your unique ability is, and then the market. Now, what most transformational people do, especially when they're first starting and they don't do this process first, they do not find their sweet spot first. What most people do is they go out and get certified first. So they lead with their certification. All right. So I don't care what that is, if it's access consciousness or EFT or hypnosis or executive coaching, they lead with their certification. So they end up like doing a lot of education, right? Education on why, executive coaching is so great, or EFT is so great, or access consciousness is so great. They lead with the certification. And the thing about the market, right? People, these are little people here. That's right. Is they don't care about your certification. These people care about themselves, and they care about they care about themselves. They care about what they want. So they're only going to throw you their wallet if you are delivering what they want. And so what some people do, they try to get themselves into this trap is they get themselves into the trap. Well, what do they want? What do the people want? Okay. Now, that's sort of on the right path, but it's still a little bit vague because what people are we talking about? And I think what we start to forget is that every single person brings a different context. So when we ask something like, well, what do the people want? We can't figure it out because every single person brings a different context. Mary wants happiness. Bill wants money. Jane wants to be lovers instead of roommates in her life, right? So everyone wants something different, and everybody has different things that are super important. My super important thing is not your super important thing. What I'm prioritizing today isn't what you're prioritizing today. So we have to then take this big generic question, like this is a big generic question, and we have to make that question more specific. And that's what the sweet spot is all about. We're going into this market, and instead of going, who's my market, we start with ourselves and go, well, what am I interested in? And then we go to the market and go, well, is the market already paying for based on what I'm interested in? That would mean that I can actually have a business. So we get specific on our interest first, and then we go out into the market and go, well, which person is paying for something like this? Now, we're not asking which person is paying for EFT, because people aren't paying for EFT tapping. People are paying for a transformation, right? So people want to, they want to go from roommates to lovers. As a new business creator, you want to go from pivoting to paid, right? You want to stop pivoting and get paid. As a woman in perimenopause, I want to go from, I don't even know, I'm making this up, aggravated to peaceful. I am, in everything that I buy, I just bought supplements today from Amazon. In everything that I buy, I'm looking for a transformation. I just bought B vitamins and omegas. Is this because I like vitamins? No. I am looking for a transformation. So everyone buys things to get a transformation. And so as pivoting people, as transformational people that are looking to start leading with ourselves and the service we can offer, we have to go, which person is paying for something like this? Not which person is paying for EFT, but which person is paying for the transformation I'm super interested in providing. Okay. So anyway, what I think my point was is that finding that is actually pretty easy. It sounds very complex, but it's actually pretty easy. I've made it a very, very simple process. The second thing that I've kind of already touched on is that market validation shows you the fastest path forward. So I don't know. I'm going to tell you something I shouldn't tell you. Do you guys want to know something I shouldn't say? I'm going to give away all my secrets. All successful offers are based on already succeeding offers and changed by 20 to 25%. So when you come to the workshop, I'm going to be giving away a market research prompt that I use, that where you can go out and start using AI to find, once we establish your sweet spot here. You like this drawing? This is like my graffiti. Once we get to the sweet spot, we take that out to, now we have AI. We can do research faster than we've ever been able to do. And we go start finding successful offers in that space. In every single thing that you want to do, there is somebody else who's already succeeding in what you want to do. And so we learn by that. That's a piece in finding our sweet spot. Who's already doing this where it's really working? And how are they doing it? How are they doing it? How have they already created the wheel and discovered that something is succeeding, so that I don't have to go out there and like hack my way through the jungle. I can just go, okay. So that's what people are willing to pay for with this thing. So market validation shows you the fastest path forward. And there's two ways to validate your offer. There's validate via research, your idea. We're not even to the offer. I keep talking about offers. This leads to your offer. But you validate through research, and then you validate through real people. And that shows you the fastest path forward. So instead of throwing spaghetti out there and building this whole thing and doing all this social media around it and putting all this effort into it, you actually pre-validate it before you ever get out there. And this doesn't take a long time. I'm talking about a process that can happen in the workshop, that the 2 hours that we are together, and then the 24 hours after that. So it can be very fast. But the third point is that your sweet spot reveals what's already working, and it also gives everybody else around you. Your sweet spot empowers everyone around you to support you. This is really important. So I built my previous business. It's so interesting for me to talk about my consciousness business because I started it in 2015 with a certification. I remember the moment I got certified going, I have no idea what to do now. It was such a buildup to getting certified. I finally got certified. And I remember getting to the end of that training and going, I have no idea what to do with myself now. And realizing that now I was going to have to build a business with it. And I didn't know how to do that. And so I spent another year working for someone else and observing, because that's how I learned things, as I would watch and figuring out. And then I hired a coach and I figured out one strategy. And out of that one strategy, I did, this was previous, but I did 40 calls and I sold one package because I didn't know how to do the calls and I didn't understand the principle behind it. So I made $1,000, my first ever strategy. So, but what started to really work in that business was I just got excited about the tools and I just started talking about them. And so I had already kind of built a big following just from like traveling a lot and talking about tools on social. I'd basically become a content creator, but I didn't know it. And then I monetized that audience and I got better and better and better at doing that to where I built a business of $1.4 million over 7 years that I was really active. That's great. That's great. But I could not keep building that way. And the reason is because when you build a business that is off your back all the time, where you have to be constantly filling classes and doing the next thing, you don't ever get a vacation. Your income is dependent on you doing the next new thing. And so I really needed something that was scalable and easy to understand and easy to refer. And I'm not saying I have found the answer to that with what I'm doing now, but what I do is easy to understand. My offer is scalable and it's easy to refer. People know what it is that I do. So it's not that you have to do something that people understand, but you do need to find that spot where the transformation you deliver is something that people pay for. And it doesn't really matter the method you use. It matters more that you have found a demand in the marketplace so that when you go out there and you put your offer together, that people can pay you right away. So I hope that gives you a little bit of behind the scenes. I guess I want to wrap with this, that there are so many things changing right now in the marketplace. So let me just look at my notes here. As I've been out there this last year and a half and just figuring my stuff out and trying things and, experimenting, what I've seen is that things have really changed. Even the way that I search for things has really changed. And people aren't really looking for generalists anymore. They're not looking for generalists. And for a long time, I rode a wave of, I was a generalist access consciousness facilitator, although access consciousness is already very niche. But I remember when I would run into certain people and they would say, well, what do you do? And I say, well, I do this weird thing called access consciousness. And then you just wait for them to ask. And those that were interested would get more involved. And that was a really effective way to grow that business. But when you don't have the backing of that anymore and you're out there on your own, you are dependent now on something you're inventing. And if it's too vague, people just simply don't listen. They just don't listen anymore. So transformational people that are just going out there and like, even if they're niching, if they're not speaking to a specific person about a specific thing, they just get scrolled by. We actually have too much going on right now. We've got too much AI content. We've got there's so many creators. And it's not that the marketplace is saturated. It's that what's going to start to happen is the cream is going to rise to the top. I remember, this is such a random example, but I was in a situation, I don't even know, months ago, and I was researching solutions because this is what people are doing. They're having problems and then they're looking for solutions to them, or, looking for what they can do to change it. And I ran into a creator on Facebook that specialized in exactly what it was that I was researching. And it was in that moment that I got it in a different way. I'm like, the specialists are being found. Now, that person now is not a resource for me for anything else. And I'm no longer struggling with that thing. So I've moved on. But what's happening in 2025 is that specialists are getting paid and generalists are getting ignored. So finding your sweet spot is just the beginning. You're going to have to learn to trust it, lean into it, believe it's worth something, form your offer around it. But if you are struggling finding your sweet spot, and if it's time to pull the trigger and you're done spinning and all that overthinking and all the business noise, then I want to invite you to the workshop. You just go to crystalcrawford.com. See if I can put this little banner on. And that will take you right there. The seats are limited because we're going to be rolling up our sleeves and doing work live. But I'm looking forward to seeing you there. And if you got anything out of this and you know somebody who's pivoting and they need some like inspiration to get out of their head and like get into action, then send this to them. And otherwise, I will see you in my next video. So good to be with you live.